What if I told you that you could train your mind to become unbreakable? Think about it. No matter what life throws at you, you remain calm, composed, and in control. It might sound impossible, but it's not. In fact, it's an ancient philosophy that has been passed down for generations, offering wisdom to those seeking mental fortitude. Today, we're diving into the 10 Stoic principles that will help you build the resilience you need to become truly unbreakable. These principles, once practiced by Marcus Aurelius himself, hold the power to transform your life if you are willing to take the leap. When you take your first steps toward embracing Stoicism, you inevitably encounter one of its most profound teachings, the dichotomy of control. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about this in his Meditations, urging us to clearly distinguish between the things that are within our control and the things that are not. This idea isn't just a philosophical musing. It's a powerful mental framework that can reshape how you approach the world. Consider this: most of our frustrations, disappointments, and anxieties stem from our desire to control things that are ultimately out of our hands. We stress over how others perceive us, whether our efforts will yield the desired outcomes, and if the world around us will bend to our will. But when you step back and realize that you have no real control over these things, it becomes a liberating experience. The only things within your control are your own thoughts, actions, and reactions. Everything else, what others think, the actions of others, the randomness of the universe, is out of your hands. Once you understand this on a deep, internal level, you free yourself from the mental traps that cause unnecessary suffering. Imagine the weight that lifts off your shoulders when you no longer feel the need to micromanage every aspect of life that is inherently uncontrollable. This principle challenges us to focus inward rather than outward. What kind of person do you want to be? How do you want to react when faced with adversity? By turning your attention to your own mind and actions, you harness an immense power, one that no external force can take away from you. This is the true power of Stoicism, the realization that while you can't control external events, you have absolute dominion over how you interpret and respond to them. The world may try to break you, but with the dichotomy of control as your foundation, you remain steady, strong, and unbreakable. Think about your day-to-day life. How often do you worry about things you can't influence? What if you could let go of those worries? Picture the calm that would come over you, the clarity of thought that would arise, if you focus solely on what was within your control. This is where true freedom lies, not in changing the world, but in changing how you perceive it. When you face challenges, remember this: you can't always control what happens to you, but you can always control how you react. And in that, you hold the key to your own unbreakable spirit. As you continue your journey into Stoicism, you encounter the next principle that will shape your resilience: the premeditation of evils, also known as premeditatio malorum. This is a practice that Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Seneca used to mentally prepare for adversity. But it's not about being pessimistic. Far from it. This practice is about preparing yourself emotionally and mentally for the challenges that are an inevitable part of life. In life, challenges don't announce themselves. They often strike when we least expect them, catching us off guard and leaving us scrambling to regain our footing. The Stoics understood this all too well. Their answer? Visualize the hardships before they happen. Imagine what could go wrong, not to dwell in fear or negativity, but to strengthen your mind for when these challenges actually arise. When you practice premeditation of evils, you imagine the things that could go wrong. Losing a job, failing an important project, facing illness or injury, dealing with the loss of a loved one. It might seem dark at first glance, but the power of this practice lies in its ability to inoculate you against the emotional shock of adversity. When you visualize these events happening, you prepare yourself to face them with calmness and composure, rather than panic or despair. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the impermanence of life and the unpredictability of events. He would remind himself that everything he cherished could be taken from him in an instant. And yet, this didn't make him fearful, it made him stronger. By anticipating the worst, he could face any situation with a mind already trained to endure it. Take a moment to think about the last time something unexpected knocked you off balance. Maybe it was a difficult conversation, a sudden loss, or an unforeseen setback. How did you react? Were you paralyzed by fear or anxiety? Now imagine if, prior to that event, you had already prepared your mind for the possibility of it happening. How much more composed and resilient would you have been? This principle isn't about dwelling on negativity. It's about building a mental fortress so that when hardship arrives, it doesn't break you. Instead, it finds you ready to endure, ready to rise above, and ready to move forward with a steady mind. Life is unpredictable, and suffering is a part of the human experience. But by practicing the premeditation of evils, you arm yourself with the mental and emotional tools needed to remain unshaken in the face of adversity. This is how you become unbreakable. Not by avoiding hardship, but by facing it head-on, with the confidence that you have already prepared yourself to endure. By regularly practicing this mental exercise, you begin to see that challenges, no matter how difficult, are temporary. And because you've anticipated them, they no longer have the power to destabilize your peace of mind. You remain grounded, calm, and in control, ready for whatever life throws your way. At this point in our journey, we encounter the third principle that Marcus Aurelius so often spoke of: embracing adversity. It's a principle that challenges the very core of how we view difficulties in life. Most people try to avoid hardship at all costs, seeking comfort, ease, and security. But Marcus Aurelius believed that adversity was not something to be shunned but embraced as a teacher, as a mentor that guides us to higher levels of resilience and wisdom. Think about it. What is a life without challenges? It's a life without growth. Just as muscles only grow stronger when faced with resistance, so too does the mind and spirit. When you train your body through weightlifting or exercise, you are pushing against resistance, breaking down muscle fibers so they can rebuild stronger. The same principle applies to our inner lives. Adversity is the resistance that helps us grow, become wiser, and more resilient. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that hardship was an opportunity for virtue. He said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Imagine that. The very thing that blocks your path becomes the path itself. Every obstacle, every difficulty, every rejection you face is an opportunity for you to practice patience, endurance, wisdom, and courage. In your own life, think about the adversities you've faced. Maybe it was a difficult relationship, a financial setback, or a failure that felt devastating at the time. Now look back. What did you learn from those experiences? How did they shape you into the person you are today? In those moments of struggle, you may not have seen it, but adversity was your mentor, teaching you lessons you couldn't have learned in any other way. Marcus Aurelius believed that adversity is a gift. It's an opportunity to practice the virtues that Stoicism holds so dear: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. Every time life throws a challenge your way, you have a choice. You can see it as a curse, or you can see it as an opportunity to grow stronger. The Stoic chooses the latter. This shift in mindset transforms how you approach difficulties. Instead of shrinking away from challenges, you begin to embrace them, knowing that they are shaping you into a more resilient, wise, and capable person. And when you start to see adversity as a mentor rather than an enemy, you become truly unbreakable. The storms of life may rage around you, but you remain steadfast, knowing that each storm only makes you stronger. So, the next time adversity knocks on your door, welcome it. Don't resist it, don't fight it. Instead, ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can this experience help me grow? When you adopt this mindset, you'll find that even the darkest moments have a silver lining, because they are the moments that forge your inner strength. As we cross the first threshold in our journey, we encounter a practice that has been central to Stoic philosophy for centuries: negative visualization, or what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum. This is the art of mentally preparing for the worst so that when it happens, you are not caught off guard. It may sound pessimistic at first, but it is actually one of the most empowering practices you can adopt. Why? Because it prepares you for reality. Life is unpredictable. No matter how carefully you plan, no matter how optimistic you are, things will go wrong. People will disappoint you, projects will fail, unexpected challenges will arise. The Stoics understood this well, and instead of allowing themselves to be devastated by setbacks, they preemptively visualized them. They imagined what could go wrong so that when it inevitably did, they were ready. Seneca once said, "What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster." By practicing negative visualization, you reduce the impact of the unexpected. You imagine losing a job, facing criticism, or encountering financial difficulties, not to dwell on these potential hardships, but to mentally prepare yourself for them. When you've already considered these scenarios, their emotional impact is lessened when they actually occur. This doesn't mean that you're dwelling on negativity or expecting the worst at all times. Quite the opposite. By preparing for possible setbacks, you free your mind from the anxiety of the unknown. You become more present, more mindful, and more adaptable. When a challenge arises, you're not paralyzed by fear or uncertainty. Instead, you approach it calmly, knowing that you've already considered this possibility and are ready to handle it. Imagine going through your day knowing that you have mentally prepared for any challenge that might arise. Suddenly, life doesn't seem so daunting. Instead of worrying about what might happen, you feel equipped to handle whatever comes your way. You've already visualized the worst-case scenario, and because of that, you are free to live fully in the present moment without the constant fear of what lies ahead. For Marcus Aurelius, this practice was essential. He would remind himself daily that life is fleeting, that everything he holds dear could be taken away in an instant. Far from making him anxious, this practice brought him peace. It allowed him to appreciate what he had, to cherish the present moment, and to face the future with calm resolve. As you adopt this Stoic practice, you too will find that you are no longer overwhelmed by the uncertainties of life. Instead, you will walk forward with confidence, knowing that you are mentally prepared for whatever comes your way. You become like the captain of a ship, who, knowing that storms are inevitable, prepares his vessel to weather the worst. And because of that, he sails forward without fear. By practicing negative visualization, you build an unshakable foundation. When the storms of life inevitably arise, they do not break you. You have already prepared, and in your preparation lies your power. As we approach the first true threshold of this journey, we uncover one of the most powerful Stoic secrets: focusing on self-improvement. It's a principle that lies at the core of Stoic philosophy, and it's one that has the potential to completely transform not only your life but the way others perceive you. You see, we all have a tendency to look outward, to fixate on what others are doing, to compare ourselves to them, and to base our self-worth on external validation. But the Stoics taught us something different, something far more profound. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." This simple statement holds an immense truth. Instead of seeking approval or chasing after the validation of others, the Stoics encourage us to turn our gaze inward and focus on our own growth. And it's through this focus on self-improvement that we begin to change the dynamics of how others view us, without ever having to manipulate or force their perception. Imagine this: when you invest in becoming the best version of yourself, when you focus on your physical, emotional, and intellectual growth, people take notice. It's not the loud, boastful display that catches their attention. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are and continually striving to be better. The energy shifts, and suddenly you find that others are drawn to you, not because of what you've said or done, but because of who you've become. The beauty of focusing on self-improvement is that it allows you to take control of what is within your power, your own actions, thoughts, and behaviors. When you invest time in learning new skills, improving your health, developing emotional resilience, or expanding your knowledge, you are directly contributing to your own sense of self-worth. And this sense of self-worth does not depend on anyone else's opinion of you. It becomes a deep-rooted confidence that radiates outward, influencing how others respond to you in return. And here's the magic of it. When you focus on yourself, you release the pressure of trying to control the actions and thoughts of others. You let go of the exhausting need for validation, and instead, you find that validation naturally comes to you. People are instinctively drawn to those who are secure in themselves, who are growing and evolving, who are focused on their own path rather than constantly seeking approval. There's another crucial aspect to this principle that we often overlook. When you prioritize your own self-improvement, you inadvertently inspire others to do the same. Those who once may have ignored you or taken you for granted begin to see the changes you're making in your life, and it sparks something within them. They begin to realize that perhaps they, too, could elevate themselves. They see your journey, your dedication, and your transformation, and they start chasing after you, not because you asked them to, but because they want to be part of the energy you're creating. This is where the true power lies. By focusing on self-improvement, you aren't trying to manipulate others into wanting you or chasing you. Instead, you're creating an environment where people can't help but be drawn to the growth they see within you. They begin to see you differently. Someone who is constantly evolving, someone who doesn't settle for mediocrity, someone who challenges themselves to be better every single day. And this is a quality that is undeniably attractive. Let's also remember that focusing on self-improvement is a lifelong commitment. It's not a one-time task or a checklist to be completed. It's a daily practice, an ongoing journey of becoming more aligned with your highest self. It's about challenging yourself to rise above old patterns, to cultivate new habits, and to push beyond the limitations you once placed on yourself. There will be days when the path of self-improvement feels difficult, when the allure of external validation pulls you back, when the progress seems slow or unnoticeable. But in those moments, we must remind ourselves that growth is rarely linear. It's often messy, full of setbacks and small victories that accumulate over time. The key is to remain committed to the process, to trust that every small effort is contributing to a larger transformation. The Stoics knew that the pursuit of self-improvement was not just about personal gain, but about embodying the virtues of wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. By aligning ourselves with these virtues, we not only enhance our own lives, but contribute positively to the lives of those around us. And in doing so, we naturally draw others toward us. People who are inspired by our journey, who want to be part of our growth, who begin to chase after the energy we've created through our dedication to self-improvement. So, as you cross this threshold, ask yourself, how can I focus more on my own growth? What areas of my life can I improve? Not for the sake of others, but for the sake of becoming the best version of myself. By doing this, you'll find that not only do you become more confident, resilient, and unbreakable, but others will start to take notice. They'll be drawn to you, not because of what you say or do, but because of who you've become, a person deeply committed to growth and self-mastery. As we move deeper into our journey, we meet another powerful mentor, the principle of inner virtues. In a world that often values external success and material achievements, Stoicism calls us back to the core of what truly matters, the development of our inner character. Marcus Aurelius, like the great Stoics before him, placed immense value on cultivating virtues such as wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These virtues, he believed, were the true measure of a person's strength and worth. In our daily lives, it's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of external validation. We seek approval from others, strive for recognition, and attach our sense of self-worth to how successful we appear in the eyes of the world. But the Stoics teach us that this is a trap. The only thing that is truly within our control is our own character, our own choices, and the way we respond to the world around us. Everything else is fleeting. Our jobs, our possessions, our reputation, they can all be taken away in an instant. But our inner virtues, the strength of our character, remain steadfast. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself of this simple truth. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. It's not enough to simply know what is right or to think about being virtuous. We must live it day in and day out. In every decision we make, we have the opportunity to act with integrity, to demonstrate courage, to show compassion and fairness. These moments, though small, are the building blocks of a strong character. Developing inner virtues is a lifelong process. It's not something that can be achieved overnight, and it's certainly not something that can be perfected. But every day presents us with countless opportunities to strengthen our character. Whether it's choosing patience in a difficult situation, showing kindness when it's easier to be indifferent, or having the courage to stand up for what's right, each of these choices is a step toward becoming the person we aspire to be. One of the most powerful aspects of Stoicism is that it shifts our focus from external success to internal growth. When we focus on developing our inner virtues, we become less concerned with the opinions of others and more aligned with our own values. We stop seeking validation from the outside world and instead find peace in knowing that we are living according to our principles. In today's society, where external achievements are often seen as the pinnacle of success, embracing the Stoic principle of developing inner virtues is a radical act. It requires us to turn inward, to prioritize our character over our reputation, and to measure our success not by what we have, but by who we are. And when we do this, we become unbreakable. No matter what challenges we face, no matter what obstacles arise, our inner virtues will guide us through, providing the strength and resilience we need to endure. So, take a moment to reflect on your own inner virtues. How are you cultivating them in your daily life? What choices can you make today to strengthen your character? As the Stoics teach us, true power lies not in what we can gain from the world, but in who we choose to become. As we begin the journey back, we are confronted with one of the most profound and challenging principles in Stoicism: the acceptance of impermanence. Life, by its very nature, is fleeting. Nothing lasts forever. Not our possessions, not our relationships, not even our own lives. The Stoics were acutely aware of this, and rather than allowing the impermanence of life to fill them with fear or despair, they embraced it as a fundamental truth. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of the transient nature of life. He wrote, "Observe constantly that all things take place by change, and accustom yourself to consider that the nature of the universe loves nothing so much as to change the things which are, and to make new things like them. Change is inevitable, and yet so many of us resist it. We cling to the things we love, we try to hold on to moments that have passed, and we fight against the natural flow of life. But in doing so, we create suffering for ourselves." The Stoics understood that by accepting impermanence, we free ourselves from this suffering. When we recognize that everything in life is temporary, we are able to let go of our attachment to outcomes, possessions, and even people. This doesn't mean that we stop caring or that we become detached from the world. On the contrary, accepting impermanence allows us to live more fully in the present moment, to appreciate the beauty and the fragility of life without trying to grasp it too tightly. Think about it. How many times have you found yourself wishing that a moment could last forever? Whether it was a happy time with loved ones, a period of success in your career, or even a peaceful day of solitude, the desire to hold on to these moments is natural. But the truth is, nothing lasts forever. The more we resist this truth, the more we suffer when things inevitably change. The Stoics offer us a different perspective. Instead of fearing impermanence, they teach us to embrace it. By accepting that everything is temporary, we free ourselves from the fear of loss. We become more resilient in the face of change, knowing that it is a natural part of life. And rather than clinging to the past or worrying about the future, we can fully engage with the present moment, appreciating it for what it is, a fleeting, precious gift. Accepting impermanence also allows us to let go of our fear of death, which is one of the greatest sources of anxiety for many people. The Stoics believed that death was simply a part of life's natural cycle, and they encouraged us to view it with acceptance rather than fear. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on his own mortality, writing, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This principle, known as memento mori, reminds us to live with intention and purpose. By contemplating our mortality, we are encouraged to prioritize what truly matters in our lives. Prompts us to focus on our values, relationships, and the legacy we wish to leave behind. Instead of being paralyzed by the thought of death, we can use it as a motivating force to make the most of our time. As we rise to face new challenges in life, one of the most powerful Stoic principles comes into play: the ability to reframe your perception. What does this mean? Simply put, it's the practice of changing how you see the world, how you interpret events, and how you allow those interpretations to shape your emotional responses. This principle of perception is at the core of Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius writes, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." This reflects the idea that it's not external circumstances that determine your peace or suffering, but rather the way you perceive those circumstances. Imagine a moment when you were faced with something that seemed insurmountable, a failure, a rejection, or even an unexpected challenge. In that moment, you might have felt defeated, as though the world was conspiring against you. But what if, instead of focusing on the loss or the difficulty, you chose to see the situation as an opportunity for growth? What if, instead of dwelling on what you couldn't control, you shifted your perception to what you could learn from the experience? That's what Stoicism teaches us to do. It asks us to challenge the narratives we create in our minds and to recognize that events are neither good nor bad in themselves. What makes them so is the meaning we attach to them. Marcus Aurelius reminds us of this repeatedly in his Meditations. Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. When we learn to reframe our perception, we gain power over our emotional responses. Instead of reacting to life's challenges with anger, frustration, or despair, we can choose to respond with resilience, curiosity, and a sense of purpose. This doesn't mean that we ignore our emotions or pretend that difficult situations don't affect us. It means that we recognize the role our thoughts play in shaping those emotions and choose to align our thinking with a more empowering perspective. For example, consider the story of a person who faces rejection, whether it's in their career, a relationship, or a personal goal. The natural response might be to feel hurt, disappointed, or even angry. But the Stoic perspective encourages us to reframe that rejection as a redirection, an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to pursue something better suited to us. Instead of seeing rejection as a reflection of our worth, we can view it as a stepping stone on our path to greater things. This shift in perspective changes everything. When we stop seeing ourselves as victims of circumstance and start viewing every experience as a chance to grow, we become truly unbreakable. Life's challenges no longer hold us back. They become the fuel that drives us forward. And it all starts with the decision to change how we perceive the world around us. By reframing our perception, we cultivate resilience, adaptability, and inner strength. We become less reactive and more proactive in shaping our lives. We stop allowing external events to dictate our happiness and instead take ownership of our mindset. This is the resurrection of our personal power, the moment when we realize that, no matter what life throws at us, we have the ability to choose how we respond. In your own life, consider where you might benefit from reframing your perception. Is there a challenge you've been struggling with? A setback that has left you feeling stuck? What happens if you look at it from a different angle? If you choose to see it not as an obstacle but as an opportunity? The power to shift your perception is always within you, and once you tap into it, you unlock a new level of resilience and strength. As we come full circle in our journey, we arrive at one of the most transformative Stoic principles: focusing on internal goals. In a world that constantly pushes us to chase external success, money, status, recognition, Stoicism reminds us that true fulfillment lies in setting and achieving internal goals. These are goals that no one else can see or measure, but they are the ones that bring the deepest sense of satisfaction and peace. Marcus Aurelius often emphasized this in his writings. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The Stoics believe that we should direct our energy toward what is within our control, our thoughts, actions, and inner development, rather than being consumed by external outcomes that are ultimately beyond our influence. Think about it. How often do we set goals that are tied to external validation? We want to get the promotion, win the award, receive praise, or achieve a certain level of financial success. But once we reach these milestones, the satisfaction is often fleeting. The joy is short-lived, and we quickly find ourselves chasing the next goal, never truly feeling fulfilled. Internal goals, on the other hand, are about personal growth, character development, and living in alignment with our values. They aren't tied to external circumstances, so they can't be taken away by the ups and downs of life. Whether it's cultivating patience, practicing mindfulness, or developing the virtue of courage, internal goals bring lasting fulfillment because they are rooted in who we are rather than what we have. This principle is liberating. When we focus on internal goals, we free ourselves from the endless cycle of striving for external validation. We stop comparing ourselves to others and instead measure our success by how well we are living according to our own values. And this is where true strength lies, because no matter what happens in the external world, we remain grounded in our inner purpose. Marcus Aurelius wrote, It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. Living, for the Stoics, meant living in alignment with one's inner virtues. It meant pursuing wisdom, integrity, and self-mastery above all else. These internal goals are the foundation of a fulfilling and meaningful life. So, as we conclude this journey, I invite you to reflect on your own internal goals. What virtues do you want to cultivate? What kind of person do you want to become, regardless of the external outcomes? By focusing on these internal goals, you build a life that is unshakable, resilient, and deeply fulfilling. This is the true elixir of the Stoic journey, the realization that external success is fleeting, but the pursuit of internal growth is eternal. By focusing on what truly matters, you unlock the strength to face any challenge, the resilience to endure any setback, and the wisdom to live a life of purpose. As our journey comes to a close, we encounter one of the most overlooked yet most transformative Stoic principles: the daily practice of reflection. It's not enough to simply go through life, encountering obstacles and triumphs alike, without pausing to process, understand, and learn from each experience. The Stoics knew this well. In fact, daily reflection was a cornerstone of their philosophy, an essential habit that allowed them to remain grounded, self-aware, and continuously striving for virtue. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, exemplified this practice. Each evening, he would sit down and reflect on the events of the day. What had he done well? Where had he fallen short? How could he improve tomorrow? This simple yet profound exercise helped him maintain clarity of mind and stay on the path of Stoic virtue, even in the face of immense challenges. Daily reflection serves as our internal compass, guiding us back to our core values and helping us correct course when we begin to drift. Without it, it's easy to get swept up in the demands and distractions of life, losing sight of what truly matters. But with it, we gain the ability to step back, observe our thoughts and actions with a critical eye, and make adjustments that align us more closely with our highest selves. Consider this: life is full of distractions, pressures, and the constant pull of external forces that seek to shape our behavior. In the chaos, how often do we pause to ask ourselves, am I living according to my principles? Am I acting in alignment with my values? Did I face today's challenges with courage, wisdom, and composure? Or did I allow fear, anger, or impulsiveness to dictate my actions? This practice of reflection, done daily, can be as simple as asking yourself a few questions before bed. What went well today? What could have gone better? Where did I display the virtues I aspire to? And where did I fall short? This process is not about judgment or self-criticism. Rather, it's about cultivating awareness and continuously striving for self-improvement. It's about looking at your day through a Stoic lens and recognizing where you have the opportunity to grow. One of the most powerful outcomes of daily reflection is that it brings us face to face with our patterns, both the constructive and the destructive ones. Over time, we begin to see which habits serve us and which hold us back. We notice how we react in certain situations, and we gain insight into our emotional triggers. And once we see these patterns clearly, we are in a position to change them. Reflecting daily also strengthens our ability to remain present and mindful throughout the day. The simple act of reviewing our actions helps us become more aware of them in the moment, allowing us to make better choices. When we know that we'll be reflecting on our behavior at the end of the day, we become more intentional with our actions in the present moment. For example, when faced with a challenging situation, perhaps a disagreement with a colleague or a moment of frustration with a loved one, we can pause and ask ourselves, how will I reflect on this later? How will I feel about the way I handled this situation when I sit down to reflect tonight? This simple pause often leads to better decisions, because we are no longer reacting impulsively but rather responding with a sense of wisdom and foresight. The beauty of daily reflection is that it doesn't require any special tools or techniques. You don't need to meditate for hours or engage in complex rituals. All you need is a few moments of quiet contemplation, a willingness to be honest with yourself, and the intention to grow a little each day. Over time, this small habit can lead to profound personal transformation. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you will ever dig, Daily reflection is that act of digging, of looking within, seeking the fountain of goodness that lies in each of us, and allowing it to bubble up into our lives. It's a practice that keeps us humble, keeps us striving for better, and keeps us connected to the virtues that make life truly meaningful. As we conclude this journey through Stoic principles, remember that the path to becoming unbreakable is not a single grand event. It's a daily commitment to practicing these principles, to reflecting on our actions, and to continuously aligning ourselves with our highest values. It's about showing up each day with intention, reflecting on where we've been, and making the conscious choice to improve. So, tonight, before you go to bed, take a few moments to reflect on your day. Ask yourself, how did I live today? What did I do well? Where can I improve tomorrow? This simple practice will help you stay grounded, resilient, and unbreakable, no matter what challenges life throws your way. You now have the 10 Stoic principles that can make you unbreakable. But remember, Stoicism isn't just something you learn. It's something you practice every single day. Let's support each other on this journey. Comment below with your favorite Stoic principle, and let's continue growing together. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content that will empower you to live a stronger, more fulfilling life. You've got this. Stay unbreakable.